have finally made it to the last lesson of our module. So far, we've talked about leadership, how to set goals and team building as a strategy to create teams that cohesively work together to achieve said goals. We've also pointed out the fact that organizations are run by people and for people. Now, it's time to take a look at the problems that may arise within an organization. Disagreements are part of life, given that no person can think exactly the same as another. So, in this lesson, we will study what kind of conflicts may occur in a team of people and the different techniques that leaders could apply to solve them. This all falls into the definition of conflict management, which is what we will begin studying right now. If we were to look up the word conflict in a dictionary, a few synonyms of it would be dispute, discord, quarrel, disagreement, and clash. It is this last word that brings us to a definition of conflict made by Prahi Juneja from a website dedicated to the study of conflict management, a study guide. In this site, a conflict is described as a clash between different thought processes, interests, perceptions, and opinions among people. These disagreements, these clashes, lead to diminishing performance within an organization because the parties involved can't find a solution or a middle way on their own, rendering unable to do their jobs and achieve the goals set by the organization. With this definition in mind, let's also take a look at what conflict management is. Under the session Understanding Conflict Management, Juneja states that conflict management involves the steps undertaken to prevent the conflict at the right time and also helps to resolve it in an effective and smooth manner. Let's take a moment to think about this definition. To resolve it in an effective and smooth manner. Here I see at least two questions that we should have clear before trying to solve a conflict. First, what does a smooth manner mean? Does it imply that every part of the conflict must be happy by the end of the process? You will see that it isn't so. And the second, if I should choose between being efficient and being smooth, which would be more important? Of course, along the lesson, we will try to help you answering these questions, but we think that keeping them in mind will be useful when going ahead through the chapter. Well, it is usually up to the leader figure to step into a conflict and try to find the best solution possible. For that, it is important to understand what types of conflict may arise within our organization dealing with people and what are the most common ways to deal with them. This is what we'll study in the following section. According to the ICFAI Business School, one of the many ways to categorize types of conflict is as follows: intrapersonal conflicts, intragroup conflicts, interpersonal conflicts, and intergroup conflicts. Notice a pattern in these names. Let's see what they mean. When we're talking about intrapersonal or intragroup, the word intra refers to conflicts that occur within one person or within only one group of people. Interpersonal conflicts are those that occur between one person and the inner self. They refer to this one person's view of his or herself and are often the most difficult types of conflict to manage because it involves, among other things, the awareness of said person about an existing conflict and it may involve issues related to mental health. It can be also related to the impossibility of doing a certain task due to the connotations of the task. For example, if I were an animal welfare defender, how could I do a commercial for Burger King? I know what you're thinking, and no, it doesn't depend on the money. Now, if the word intra is applied to a group, then we get an intergroup conflict. Intergroup conflicts are those that occur among different people belonging to the same team. This may be the most common type of conflict in organizations, and it will probably be the type of situation you, as leader, will have to deal with the most. Intergroup conflicts occur when people from the same team have different personalities, opinions, and ideas that can lead to a disagreement. When taken to extreme, these disagreements will result in a performance hindrance and in the delay of deliverables according to the goals established. However, not all is bad when it comes to disagreements. If they can be effectively managed, not only by the leader of an organization, but the team members themselves, differences of opinions and ideas can lead to improved ideas and procedures that will help achieve the organization's goals more effectively. After all, everyone is allowed to think differently as long as their performance doesn't become affected by interpersonal conflicts, which we will study next. Let me point out one thing. Most of the intergroup conflicts arise because of a lack of definition of the roles inside the group. The whole group may be committed to the same task, but not everyone has to do everything. When each member of the team has a clear idea of his/her responsibilities, any commentary on the responsibilities of any other member of the team will be just an opinion, hopefully constructive, and you, as the leader, will be able to manage it much easier. As we mentioned before, the other two types of conflict follow the word pattern inter, and they can be interpersonal or intergroup. We have already given you a clue about what interpersonal conflict means. That is, a conflict occurring between two different individuals due to differences in personalities, ideas, and opinions. But since these types of discrepancies are always going to be present, given that, as we have said many times before, no one person is, thinks, and acts exactly the same as another, it is up to both the team members and the leader or organization to understand the value of different ideas beyond the possible clashes that may arise. You may see that the intergroup conflict we mentioned above is composed of interpersonal conflicts. When a conflict between two or more members of a group arises, the first thing you need to do is to make sure that it keeps in the professional side, avoiding the personal one. And finally, last but not least, we've got intergroup conflict. This type of conflict occurs when the discrepancies and differences of opinion happen not between individuals, but between two or more different teams in our organization. The bigger an organization is, the bigger the number of teams of departments handling different aspects of it, which only increases the probability of conflicts arising between them. One of the main triggers for intergroup conflicts to arise is competitiveness in performance among the different teams. Although this can also lead to a bigger production of ideas and enhanced performance of each group, it can almost inevitably lead to the opposite. The leader's role in this situation is crucial because often conflict between teams emerge due to unclear goals and tasks set for each group. This type is probably the most common one in organizations with different departments. Every one of them needs to do their task the best, without thinking too much on the other department's needs. Now, just think about the creation of a new product, whatever, a soap, a book. There has to be a date for the release, okay? Now, the production department sets one based on the timing of making the product. The economic department sets its own based on the cash flow of the company. The marketing department has another due to advertising campaign dates. The distribution department has another one, etc., etc. Do you think any of those 4 or 5 dates are going to be the same? Yes, you're right. It never happens. Now, after learning what all these different types of conflict mean and why they may arise within our organization, it is important to insist on the following point. Not every conflict is a tragedy. In fact, if we review history, conflicts are the cause of changes. Most of the times understanding changes as the response to a new times request. If we see them as the difference of ideas and opinions between different individuals or teams, a healthy amount of conflict can lead to enhanced performance for our organization. The more ideas are had, the more results are had. However, this fine line between diminished and enhanced performance due to conflict is a dangerous one. And when the line is crossed towards negative conflict, it is time to think about how to manage it. In the following section, we will discuss a little bit about some conflict management strategies. According to the ICFAI Business School, conflict management techniques can be classified according to who benefits or who doesn't in the process. Taking this as our starting point, there are 5 different conflict management techniques: collaborating, compromising, accommodating, competing, and avoiding. The following chart will indicate the outcome of each strategy understood as a relation between winning or losing after a solution is implemented. Let's start with collaborating. It's a win-win one. Compromising. You win some and you lose some. Accommodating. You lose, someone wins. Competing. You win, someone loses. Avoiding. No winners and no losers. Now, to understand the meaning behind these win-win or win-lose relations, let's put ourselves in the center of a conflict. Imagine you've had a disagreement with a work colleague about how to spend a given amount of resources. You're in favor of using the 70-100% of the money in situation A and 30-100% of the money in situation B. Your colleague, on the other hand, believes the distribution should be done the other way around. 70-100% on situation B and 30-100% on situation A. This is what we call a conflict. Let's walk through each strategy and see how the conflict would be managed. Collaborating for a solution means each party of the conflict wins and neither of them loses. Ideal, isn't it? The good news is that it's not an utopia. And the not that good news is that this conflict management strategy requires patience, understanding, and willingness. All this to work together towards a win-win outcome by creating a solution that is acceptable for everyone. An example of how we could resolve the percentage conflict in a collaborating manner might be joining forces to bring both situations. A and B to completion, using 100% of the resources to finance one situation first, and then, after some time and commitment, using another budget to make situation B happen. Finding solutions that will render both parties winners mean you can be as creative as you can in your brainstorming of ideas. Moving on to the second conflict management strategy, compromising means a relation of win some, lose some. In order to bring a conflict to an end, one of the most common ways to do it is being ready to give some leeway on your demands, sacrificing some of them to ensure the achievement of others. If both parties involved in the conflict do this, then a comfortable solution can be achieved for them even when not 100% of their demands are met. In the words of the ICFAI Business School, this technique follows the rule, you bend, I bend. Warning: it's not fair to start from a 150% position to offer a sacrifice and finish without loss. Compromising means adjusting with each other's opinions and ideas and thinking of a solution where some points of both parties can be entertained. A solution to our percentage example might be dividing the budget in 50-100% for each situation and making sure both situations happen, not as entirely as they would have with the 700% of the resources, but enough to make both situations acceptable. That is a win-some, lose-some outcome. The next two strategies follow the same concept. You win, any other loses, and you lose, any other wins. The only difference is from which perspective we look at the conflict. A big difference indeed. In an accommodating situation, the outcome is I lose, you win. This means that to solve the conflict, you are willing to give up on your demands, ideas, and opinions so that the other person can keep theirs. Lovely. What do you think about it? Can you remember the last time you did something like this? If you consider that the issue isn't as important to you as it is to the other person, this can be a good way to end the conflict. Now, if we find ourselves wanting or needing to win without a shadow of doubt, then the outcome must be the other way around. The name of this strategy may give you a clue. Competing. It means finding a solution in which all your demands, ideas, and opinions are met, and the other person's are not. This situation is the only possible when one of the options excludes the other. Holidays by the sea or the mountain. We don't have enough days to do both. This would be an I win, you lose kind of solution. Despite how harsh these lose-win and win-lose outcomes might be, and how in favor or against one may be to either solution, or to even calling these outcomes a solution, the last two conflict management strategies, accommodating and competing, are in fact ways to end the conflict. If a person gives up on their ideas, then there is no further clash between the two parties. And if a person fights until they get their way, the other party is excluded from the equation and the conflict disappears. Either way, the conflict is over. If we were to apply these strategies to our percentage example, an accommodating solution would be being in favor of situation A, but accepting only the 30% of the budget, and a competing solution would be setting your foot down and only accepting your requested 70-100% for making situation A happen. Moving on to the last conflict management technique, avoiding the conflict means that there are no winners, but it also means there are no losers either. As the name of the strategy suggests, avoiding the conflict means both parties are unable to find a solution on their own and are forced to turn to a third party who will be the only one responsible for the outcome. This strategy can be dangerous in some sense, in the sense that, depending on the personality and role of the third party within the team, many times this person is the leader, the solution implemented might be the simple rejection of both parties' ideas and eradicating the conflict, but by creating a lose-lose situation. Going back to our percentage example, a possible solution would be having this third party decide neither situation, A or B, will come to completion, and that 100% of the resources will be spent in another thing entirely. Let's do a reflection. No matter the strategy you use to solve a situation, when inside a team or organization, one of the parts of the conflict feels like being defeated, you are in danger of losing this part of the team for future projects. So you can present the conflict as a competition between two or more options. They have to know that the option that is chosen is the best for the whole team or organization. I know it's not going to be easy, but that will be a challenge for your charm as leader. Having studied the different conflict management strategies, this brings us to the last section of the lesson, negotiation. How can we negotiate a solution to a conflict? We will learn more about it in the last note for the lesson. But before that, here are some questions that invite reflection. Did you know any of these conflict management techniques? You probably have participated in some, but taking the role of one of the parties, not as the leader. If you must do the leader role in one conflict, try to remember your feelings when you were a part of a conflict, so you will do an effort of empathy that will help you to do your job. Which one do you consider the best and worst case scenario when it comes to solving a conflict? Choose the options thinking on you as the person that must manage the situation. Can you think any other conflict management strategy? This is not a rhetorical question. When you are in the middle of a conflict, trying to solve it, you will have to adapt the common strategies to the particular case. We have reached the last part of the lesson and, in turn, the last part of our module. In this section, we will talk a little bit about what negotiation is and how we can apply the concept of negotiation to a conflict, following a series of steps to find a solution. Following our reference in all things related to conflict management, the ICFAI Business School describes negotiation as a method by which people settle differences. It is a process by which compromise or agreement is reached while avoiding argument and dispute. As we can see, their definition of negotiation already points to one of the conflict management strategies we've just studied and its related outcome, compromising to reach a win-win solution. Now, negotiation approached by stages is described as follows. Step 1, preparation. Step 2, discussion. Step 3, clarification of goals. Step 4, negotiate towards a win-win outcome. Step 5, agreement. Step 6, implementation of a course of action. To begin a negotiation process, it is important to be aware of all aspects related to the problem and to have all the necessary information so that the solution reached can be as informed as possible. Doing this research is in the shortest amount of time is the most recommended, so the conflict does not get prolonged to unmanageable levels. All these actions describe the very first step of the process, preparation, and they are before any meeting or encounter to talk about the issue at hand. Discussion, on the other hand, already involves sitting down to talk about the problem. During this stage of the process, both parties involved in a conflict put forward their reasoning and try to make a compelling case, either to convince the other party or the third party mediating the process to agree with them. Reaching the third stage of the negotiation, it is important to clarify the goals of both the parties and the meeting itself. Usually, information presented in a clear manner, bullet point list, short, precise sentences, etc., will help everyone understand and prioritize better the issues and possible solutions to reach. Moving on to the second half of the steps, we have reached the peak point of the process, having to negotiate towards a win-win outcome. As we pointed out in the previous section of the lesson, compromising means giving some ground and accepting a solution in which both parties are benefit. Once this solution is proposed, it is time for the next steps of the process, agreement, which is the explicit statement of the agreement reached and on which both parties of the conflict agree on. Finally, having reached the last step of the negotiation process, it is time to implement a course of action. Understood and carrying out the solution agreed upon by everyone involved, this stage also brings with it the evaluation of the outcome. Has the conflict really been resolved? Is everyone involved satisfied with the outcome? Has any new conflict arisen as a consequence? When everything seems to be resolved, we can consider that the conflict has ended. If not, then on the basis of a new stage, we should initiate another negotiation process. After this last section about finding a solution through negotiation, we have finally reached the end of our module. During this leadership module, we have focused on leadership itself, the definition of it that Ahmad, Aharuttaman, Saha, Ohri, and Ramakrishnan did. Leadership is a process by which one person influences the thoughts, attitudes, and behaviors of others. Then we went through its different styles: autocratic, laissez-faire, participative, transactional, and transformational. After that, we studied the pros and cons of each one. And we have gone over a few techniques that can help you set more specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound goals. The SMART chart. We have delved into the exciting world of team building, going over its importance, benefits, and strategies. And with this lesson, we've covered the different types of conflict we can encounter as leaders: intrapersonals, intragroup, interpersonals, and intergroup. Finally, we have talked about a few tips that could help you find the best solution possible, and the 6 steps of a negotiation, which are preparation, discussion, clarification of goals, negotiate toward a win-win outcome, agreement, and the implementation of a course of action. As we've said many times before, people are different, and there will be as many types of leaders, teams, and conflicts as there are people in the world. However, it is our hope that after this brief overview, we have helped you develop and, if not, at least reflect upon the different ways in which you can approach this diversity, understanding also that our goal is not to mark one technique or style as more important or efficient than the other, but to give you the necessary tools and knowledge to deliberate on it yourself. Remember also that by knowing ourselves the best that we can, and also knowing what kind of leaders we are and want to be, then the way to approach and manage organization, people, and conflicts will come more naturally to us.